right, we're back, and it's COMP213, and it's week 11, lesson 11, part 2. And we kind of finished off last time with talking about web forms a little bit in our kind of technical piece of our lesson, right? Let's go back. Again, we're looking at this PowerPoint from week 9. Again, it's week 9, but it's chapter 10 in the book. And we've covered quite a bit of this already, but I want to cover pieces that we haven't had a chance to touch upon. Again, so just as a review from last week, we touched on input elements, right? Different kinds of input elements. An example, this one is a password box. We also talked about this text box. We did those. We've done check boxes. We talked check boxes last week, as well as radio buttons. Those are the ones we kind of covered. There's also a text area element, all right? And a text area element is exactly what this shows us here. We have an element that has some common attributes, a name, an ID, columns, and rows. And columns and rows kinds of gives us the size of our text box. Typically, what we want to use, and again, when we say columns and rows, right, it's an attribute. Okay, this is not a styling thing. Okay, now there's some advantages and disadvantages again about using text boxes or text areas. All right, let's take a look at the W3C schools. So if I go W3C schools, W3 schools, there it is. There's also specifications for all this stuff. So if you ever wanted to look at the specification, specs are really, boring, right, to look at. But the one thing they do when I look at these elements, for example, if I go, text or input text area, right, then it's going to take me to HTML8 text area tag. And if you look at it, there's an actual text area tag right now for HTML5, right? So there's a text area, and if you notice, you specify rows and columns. Now go back to the PowerPoint for a second. What does it say here? This is the text area element, right? So it's not anymore an input. It's its own text area element, right? Let's go back. Okay, so there's a bunch of different attributes here again. Autofocus, number of columns, and so on. A name, whether it's read-only and not rows. Those are the two main ones, rows and columns. And, that's what it really looks like. Again, I would use text areas for things like large areas where you want people to enter text, right? That's one thing you can use. I would not use it for areas where I want people to read text. Reading text is something like we normally have in a paragraph or something like that. You would not want, and people do this sometimes, they use a text area so people would read it, right? No. This is for input. Like if I want to enter like a short answer, or I want to send a message. Like let's say I make an email form. One of the areas or the things in an email form is a text area, right? Okay. One thing I'm going to go back to is last week I kind of had a document that I was using, right? So I'm going to go into, see if I can get this working this time around. I think it's this one. Yes. Okay. So here is COMP213 lesson 10 part 1, and I'm not sure if I have this version up online or the other one. Let's go to GitHub 1 second so I can talk about this version again with you guys a little bit. And if you go to my GitHub, if I look at COMP213 lesson 10 part 1, and I just want to make sure that it's the same from an index.html perspective, I did not update it. Let's see if I can update that for you guys. So from a lesson 10 perspective, can I upload? Did I connect this with my Solution Explorer? Let me stop and go to Team Explorer for a second and see if this is the one. And no, this is not the one. Because see how it gives me an error with GitHub? Well, one thing I did with this one, just to give you guys an example for this one, I try and share everything I can with you guys. Let me just make sure if I close this down one more time and go into my lesson plans. I have a couple of them. Usually I keep one or two in my plans. So here's COMP213. Oh yeah, here's 1A. Maybe that's the one we're looking at right now. So if I go to this one, here's 1A. Let's make sure. I got two. I got 1 and 1A. And I think this might have been the one we looked at just now. Yep. So lesson 1 right then would be this one. And I don't think I did that, you know, kind of multiple page one, multi-page one on this one. Just want to make sure I got everything good. Yes, this is the one. Negative dashboard is a different page altogether. All right. Yeah, I don't know if this is the one either. We're just going to stop this whole thing off and make sure that I start off and I give you the right project parameters, and I'll update GitHub in a second. So that's 1 and 1A. Maybe do something different in 1A. Why doesn't it go back to? That's why that's what I did different with 1A. How about that? I didn't put this in. Yeah, and I put my rounded corners were a little different. So I went to here, and I have these male and female specifications and so on. So that's 1A. And I'm sure that if I was stopping to debug here, and I went to my Team Explorer, and I went to changes, yeah, there's no path. But for 1 by itself, I think I had changes for 1. Let's make sure I go back here. And of course I can fix it if that's true. Changes. And I'm going to, the one thing that we have to do with, sometimes what happens is this happens with the thing. This happens frequently with us here. You have to choose what you're pointing at. So this is 1, and I want to make sure that I point at the right area. And there's a lot of different, what I have here is a bunch of repositories, and I want to choose to connect with a particular repository. So I want to kind of, I can either add a repository that's already there in my sandbox. So if I want to choose which one it is, just want to make sure that lesson 10 part 1 is not here. So I want to connect with that one. So let's take a look at my sandbox. And underneath my sandbox, it's this one, lesson 8 part 1. Right? So and let's see if that was the one. Add, knowing your repository is found, because they somehow feel that I have one that's already there. It's amazing when I'm physically here and I'm at home, everything's fantastic. When I'm here, it's got a problem. Okay, let's take a look. So this is lesson 8 part 1. Here's my changes. I added in some CSS, so modified CSS. I want to press commit. I'm going to press home, and I'm going to unstick commits, and I'm going to click sync. I should be able to sync up with my GitHub page, which allows you guys to see what I see, which is what I really wanted. Huh? Yes? Yeah. That's the wrong one. That is this one. Yeah. So the great thing is I've kind of put up this site so you can see some examples of a multi-page site. Right, a couple of examples here. Let's take a look and make this work again. So here we have an example of kind of a login form with some login and reset information here. I think I didn't finish this one off because normally my reset and login form was kind of over here. Then I made my dashboard link. So when I went to my dashboard, I had this idea of male and female, you know, pages and so on, and I can choose different parts of my selection, right? I can save my selection. When I save, it'll take me back to my example page, right? Okay, so one thing that I wanted to do is I want to add another page. So I want to make link 3, and link 3 is going to be my almost like a contact form. Let's make a contact form, right? So link 5. So I'll make that in link 5 for you. So I'm going to stop debugging. I'm going to go back to my Solution Explorer, and I have a few pages, right? A couple pages. I have index.html, right, which I have a couple of things here. And one thing I want to add into my index.html is a link for my contact page. So here's index.html, and then my next link here will be contact. I don't have it yet, but I'm going to put contact.html, right? And it's going to be called contact. It's going to be contact us. So I'm kind of doing this one step at a time. Typically what you want to do is you want to kind of put all these navigation pieces. I'm going to add the same thing in here just in case. I want to do things from my dashboard. There it is, contact. I don't have a contact. I spelled it wrong too. I don't have a contact.html page, but I will, right? And of course, what am I going to base my contact HTML page off of? Well, my index.html. That's what I'm going to base it off, right? So let's do the same thing I did last time. I've just made some changes, and into my index.html, I'm going to copy this one. So Control C, and then Control V, and I've got a copy of my index.html page. And then again, I'm going to name this contact.html. Inside my contact page, I got to change a couple things here. One of them is what this thing is called. So it's going to, in my title, it's going to say contact us. Contact us. And here's my contact us page. And now, if you notice, my active link is not going to be my home page anymore like last time. I'm going to move my active link into my contact, right, list item. Right? So my contact list item is going to be my main page. I have username and password. I don't want to have these things anymore. I do have a submit and reset button, which I want to keep. And I want to add some other stuff in my form group that we kind of put together last week. Okay, so let's just kill some of this stuff. And you know what? I'll erase. I'll kind of keep an area for my form group. And maybe I'll keep a label, right? But instead of username for my label, I'm going to call this kind of a contact information. So basically, I want them to give me their user information. So maybe a first name, last name, that kind of thing. An email address. So maybe a name, contact address, contact number, email address, and I also want some kind of text area for your comments or your request information, your message, right? So let's do that. So we're going to say instead of our username, we're going to call this name. So name information, and we're going to call this, name. That's our label, and then our input is going to be the same thing. We're going to say an input that's type is equal to text, right? And inside here, we're going to say that we're going to get autofocus for this one. So we're going to say autofocus is true, right? And I also want my input to have some other things. For example, my ID for this control is also going to be name, right? It's kind of could be first name and last name if you wanted to break it up. For me, I'm just making it name. And then, I also want some placeholder text, which is, enter your name, because I want them to enter their name when they come to me, right? The other thing is I need to have this as required, because you know what? I know that I can't have a contact form without them giving me their name, okay? That's one thing. I also need, I like this one, this is cool. I also need their contact number. So I want to kind of take this here, Control C, make another space down here, and then put in another one. Instead of name, it's contact, I'll put contact number, because I want them to kind of enter their contact number. So name, contact, or telephone number, let's say, we'll call it contact number. And maybe for this one, I mean, again, I want them for this to be required. I don't want them to have autofocus, because I only want the top one to have autofocus. But contact number is what right here. My ID is contact number, right? And I'm not going to have a placeholder. I could have a placeholder. Please enter your telephone number or contact number. Enter your contact number. That's your placeholder text, right? And then, okay, that's cool. Form from that. Name, contact number, maybe email. How about that? That's the last thing I want, kind of email address. So contact number and then email. Right, there's email. And it's still going to be of type text because I'm getting them to enter this information, right? I don't want them to. Now, the one thing I could do is put it as a type of email. So when you have some kind of mobile device, when they type in their stuff, I want them to have it kind of comes up with a mobile number. You'll change keyboards, right? So if I say email, then it'll show the @ sign in their mobile on their mobile device, right? So I want to say, well, my placeholder for my email address is enter a valid email address, or you enter your email address. This is also required. So I think name, contact number, email address, those things are probably pretty standard if they want to kind of fill out a form. for contacting me, right? Contact number, and so on. Oh, one thing is, you might think that it might be a good idea for from a type of, when I say this type, my input element for my phone number, you might want to do like type is equal to, and then there's other options here. For example, there is a button, and there's also a number, like the number, not a phone number, but a number. And if you look further down, there's one that says tell. If I click tell, that means now I'm asking for a telephone number, which will give me the validation for a telephone number. It will actually ask for a valid telephone number, as opposed to some kind of alphanumeric characters. It won't accept that. So that's kind of new to HTML5, where it kind of specifies the type of entry box, right? One more. So I'm going to copy this again and put this down here. And now, instead of our contact number, this is where we're going to kind of create a label for our message. We don't have a message label, a message yet, and this is our we don't have it's not going to be an input type. It's going to be a text area. So if I go, text area, right, and if I look and see, this is where my text area is going to contain, and I have an ID, right? So here's my ID, and my ID is message. That's what my ID is. Right? I could put some placeholder text as well. I could say enter your message here, right? I could put that in there. But I'm not going to make it required, because sometimes people don't want to put in a message. They just want a kind of email address and phone number sent in there. And if I make it required, then you have to put in a message. Some people like it the other way around. They don't care about a phone number, or one or the other, phone number or contact number or email. This is wrong. This should be email address. I'm going to put that wrong, right? So contact number, email address. I can choose to use the colons or not. So here's my colons. I'm choosing to use them in this particular case. Here's my name, and maybe I want to make this, instead of name, but customer name, because that makes more sense. They're kind of contacting me. And again, if I was going to be realistic, I probably want to make this customer name instead of just name, because name is just too generic. Right, so customer name, go. And then the same thing would be for email address, right? Instead of email, right? Type as email, but then the label would be for customer email, right? Because that makes more sense, and you get into less trouble this way, right? Than if you just use generic email name. Okay, so we got a text area, and I haven't specified rows and columns. I could. If I specify rows and columns, though, right, then what that does is it says this is how many rows and columns they get, period, right? So, for example, maybe I want to say, rows, I want to make it so it's at least 5 rows, right? I don't specify columns because, columns actually gives me my size as well in some ways. Let's see what I get now from this piece. So this is my contact form. Well, one thing I'm probably missing as well in my contact form is, this is my form information, but I probably want a contact section, like where they actually contact me, kind of thing. Also, my ID is main content here, and this is cool, but I mean, you'll see what I'm talking about in a second. But I probably want another div here, and I probably want to make it an aside, right, where I have my contact information. I want to make it first, so I'm thinking in my mind, my aside is going to be on the left side of my screen. So I'm going to make a 2-column layout here for this one. So see how my layout automatically in my head for my contact page is different, right? So I want to put my div tag. I could put my div tag in here with an ID of contact info or whatever, or I can just simply use an aside. So here's my aside, and inside my aside, right, I could choose to make this an address, just like we did last time, right? So here's my address, and inside my address, I could say, like, some company Inc., right? 123 some company road, right? In some city in Ontario, with X0XOXO, and then phone number being 555. The whole lovely number, 5555. There we go. right? So that's the kind of contact information, maybe with an email address of info at somecompany.com, and then www.somecompany.com, just for the information. So it's like almost like our contact card, right? Okay, cool. So then I can put make this as strong, so I can kind of highlight this as strong, or an emphasis, you know, which is kind of semantically incorrect, right? Because it's not really, you know. And then 1, 2, 3, or you can also choose this as a title, H2 or H4, something like that, if you wanted to make that, but not really a headline, so not semantically correct. You also want to kind of separate this with, you know, line breaks, and some people will do this differently, but this is one way to do it. So there's your line breaks, and then this would be a telephone number, a link to a telephone number. So I will go with a href of tel, right? And then I'll kind of do a dash here. And sometimes this won't work because I'm inside this thing, so I'll do the same thing. So with my shortcut with an href of tel. There we go. That's what I meant to do. Just didn't work because I was in that context. And I'll just copy and paste it in here. And it's not what I wanted. We'll copy and paste it in here. And then take this phone number here and put this phone number not just as a the number that's going to be outside, like for example here, but also as the number that goes here, right? Which is not going to have any of these funky things here. 555 5555 would be the link, right? So that when your mobile device will be able to dial it, right? And you probably want to put something like this, telephone number, right? And the same thing goes with this one. This would be email, right? So you have some kind of mail to thing if you wanted to mail us directly. If you want to expose your email address now, you could. My only thinking is just, you know, I'm just saying, you know, if you may decide not to do that because when you expose your email address, you know, bots can take it, steal it, and then bomb you with spam. We don't want that, right? So that's something that you may decide not to do. I'm just going to take this information. So I'm just reformatting my address there so it looks like a contact sheet here. Right, there we go. And then put that over here. Okay, and then this would be an actual link. So another a tag with a href link to somecompany.com, right? So let's take this whole thing. And then in here, I put HTTP / and enter somecompany.com. And of course, I put in my www.somecompany.com link. Oops, the wrong place. The wrong place. I meant to do it here between the A tag. So that is not what I wanted. I meant to do it. I love this. This is good. It's fantastic. Here, that's what I wanted. Okay, so now I've got kind of an address information in my aside. And my aside, I haven't really styled my aside, so we got to figure that out. How do I make this 2-column layout with a main content? Right, so let's run this thing and see what it looks like. I think it's about time. Made some changes here. Well, this is what it looks like, right? But that's not what I want, right? I want my content, this part here, and this is kind of weird too. Look at this, right? This isn't styled right. I want my content to be on the right side, and login and reset, I forgot to change that, so I got to change that up too. So let's change that up. So it won't be login. This will just be called, you know, submit and cancel, right? Or it could be submit and reset. That's fine too. So again, it would be submit instead of login, and the submit button, or send. Maybe the send button. There we go, send. That's more accurate. Send button. Sorry about that. So it's still a type of submit. A reset would reset the form if you don't want that. So let's save that, and we will refresh this page because that needs some refreshing. There we go. So there's some reset and send. I got a bit of some styling going on there, right, for our page. And this is great, but this makes me angry, right? This up here is bad, right? Because we don't have any styling for an aside. And you know, we could certainly style that up now by choosing to have the aside on the right side or left side, and then I want to float my this piece here on the right side, and I definitely want to make this a little bit larger, right? So we're gonna have to talk about, if I start typing in here, la la la, 2, right, 3, 4, 5. You see, there's five layers here, right? I've got some placeholder text here, and so do I have it here. But if you notice, my text area isn't styled. That's a problem. So let's go back. And one thing I want to put in is my contact number is going to have this, but that's not really my contact number. That's your message. Message. That's what that should say, right? Because it's not a contact number; it's a message. Also, what happens if I put you know, rows 5 and columns is equal to 5? What does that do? So here's, remember what we saw before, it was this, right? And if I put columns and rows as 5 and I refresh, it doesn't do anything. Why? Because we haven't told this how big I want this thing. Like if you notice, it's resizable, right? And I can make it go a certain width, right? I want it to be definitely that wide, right? So I can start typing in my message. So I got to fix that. I got to fix that in CSS is where I got to fix that. So this is not a username and password, but a kind of this would be a contact form, right? So there's a contact form, and this won't submit. This won't be a dashboard. It'll take us to to the same form. It'll take us to index.html. Take us back out to the login page or whatever. Okay, so some changes. Let's take a look at my CSS. I'm just going to pull up my Solution Explorer here, and we're going to go into content in our main.css here. And if you notice, we're still talking forms, but I haven't really talked about styling for my. There's my main form. Main form is cool. I like main form, right? And that's okay. But I don't have any styling for an aside. So you see I have header, footer, nav. I also have something down here called, you know, probably somewhere up here, sorry, called main content, something like that, right? But I don't have anything for an aside, right? So that's the problem. So let's go back to here. So I got main content and my main form, right? But I don't have anything for, first of all, main content's here, right? And it says 0 auto with a width of 90. I can't use main content here because main content would screw up my other page, right, if I change this. So I got to change my ID tag to something else other than main content. So maybe this would be something like, you know, first of all, it would be my contact form, or contact content, or whatever it's going to be. Content info. I can make it like that. It makes more sense. And then my contact info would have, instead of a margin of 0 auto, well, that's okay. I like margin of 0 auto. That's cool. And maybe a padding, again, of 15 pixels, but it wouldn't have a max width of 90%, right? That'd be an issue. Like it's got to have a max width of, I don't know, 60%, right? So max width of 60%. And let's say I make all asides. So I'll say all my asides right now, they're going to be float left. And I'll make my contact info float left as well. And just to make sure that my footer is okay, because my footer will be messed up, right? I don't want that to happen. So here's my footer. It says float none. What I really want to do in my float and my footer is clear both. That's what I really want to do, so that way my footer doesn't fly all over the place, right? Let's see what that does. So I'm going to kind of run this thing now and see what it does. And I'm going to go to my, oh look, hey, my link isn't changed here. That's kind of weird. Should have had my link, there it is, contact us. So click my contact us page. Okay, this is cool. I float left, that's cool, and so this is what I'm doing here with this one. But I don't have any kind of paragraph for this one, and you know what is also happening is it's kind of running out of its side here. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. So my aside, if I put in this information inside my aside, and I'm just saying float left, What I really mean is I want this to have an overflow. Let's go with overflow again. Overflow auto kind of takes care of some of that. And if I want to see it, let's put in a border just as a test of 1 pixel solid. We'll make it solid today. Make it blue, right? So make a blue border just to kind of change it up instead of red and green all the time. And refresh. There's our blue border. So you can see now that's good, right? But this thing floating left, that's a problem, right? Because it looks like it's trying to float left, but you know, this contact form isn't working out. This is a main content, which means I got to change that up on my index.html because I haven't changed that up as well. So let's go back to index.html or my contact.html. Instead of main content, this is going to be called form. You know, kind of form info or contact info. There it is, contact info. So that's going to be my ID, right, for this page, and which will give me a little bit more styling for this thing. Let's take a look at that now and refresh. All right, so it kind of floats it on this side here. This not cool. Don't like the way how this is looking. It's definitely give me this 2-column layout, you know, kind of thing. But I want to push this even further out. And also, if you notice, I got a bit of a problem for margins. You know, the aside kind of butts up right against here. I don't like that whatsoever. So how do I take care of that? So I'm going to go back to the drawing board here on my aside. So here's my aside. I got border 1, float left, but I got no margins. And you know what? I think what I need to do is, you know, if I go margin 0, I'll go 0 auto again. Let's see what that does, right? I like that. I like the padding and overflow, so I'll go padding 15 pixels. And I'll say max width, instead of 90%, you know, I'm going to make it so that it's like 40%. So max width for this one is 40% to kind of say that, you know, what it's going to look like, right? So let's take a look at that. Styled up this thing a little bit more, right? There we go. It's looking a little better, a little slicker, right? And you know what? I want my some company Inc. I want that to be strong. Well, I haven't talked about what strong is, so I can certainly go in here and near my aside, I could talk about what my strong tag does. So I can say strong. You know, I want to have 2.8 ems for my strong or something like that, or 1.5 ems. So I'll say like, well, my font size is 1.4 ems. Let's say, making this up here, and my font weight is bold, and we're also going to say that our line height for this thing is also going to be 1.5 ems, so a little bit of space in between my title for my strong. I've labeled it as strong for my company. Let's refresh. A little bit of a stronger thing there, right? And you know what? I want to take my text decoration off for my telephone number. So if I click on my telephone number in this size, I don't want to show a link for my telephone number. It's not really going to go anywhere right now, right? But for my www, this is cool. I like that. I definitely want to move this out here. So margin auto is not cool. I got to definitely put in like 15 pixels or something like that on the left. So that didn't work out too much, right? So instead of my side being 0 auto, right? And if I look at some of the other things I've got going on here, I think what I want is at least 15 pixels all the way around, right? So let's try that, 15 pixels. And let's refresh. So just kind of drag us down a little bit. That's a little better. It's looking at the side here, so it's got a bit of spacing on the left-hand side to kind of highlight my somecompany.com. I also want to change up my text for my aside, so that's going to happen. You know, after my strong. So anything else, if I don't label it as strong, inside my aside, I want my text to be a little bit bigger. So I'm going to go font size is equal to 1.2 ems, let's say, and my my line height is going to be 1.3 ems. So again, I'm just adding in some spacing between my lines. And when I do that and refresh, then I get a bit more space here for my company information, right? And if I want to, what if I want to pull this down, right? So, because you know, look at this one. This is quite down here. So I want to add what? Margin on the top, right? So I want to pull this whole thing down here. So at the minimum, it's the same level as this thing. Right? There's a couple ways to do that, and I spelled my company wrong. Look at that. That's just like horrendous. Let's go back and fix that up because it drives me crazy when I make errors like that. So some company, there we go. Some company. I did it again and again, but I'm okay with that one. Yeah, so I want to push this one down. Well, what did I do? What do I do to push this one down? What do I do? So I go, here's my main CSS, and my aside, I want to go with margin instead of margin top of 15 pixels like it is all around. I want to change that up. So I want to change my margins so they're more specific. So the top, let's add in, kind of push it down a little bit, 40 pixels from the top, 15 pixels from the right and left, right? Actually, you know, we'll leave it like that. 40 pixels top and bottom, right and left, 15 pixels, see what that does, right? And we'll see how that goes. Almost, maybe another 10 pixels, I would say. Just get it even. Right, so I'm just going to push it down here. And again, if you wanted to make this responsive, this page, you'd have to make it, I would either use M's. That's not enough. Probably 70 is too much. Let's take a look. And again, I was trying to get this down. That's not bad, 70 pixels. So that's how it would look now. Right? So I got my company information on the left side. I've got my contact form in the middle. And you know what? Now I got to format my text area. So my text area has got to be kind of similar to what these look like, right? And you know what? I'm not happy how big this area is for my labels. I think I want to increase my label size now, specifically for all labels within my contact form. So how would I do that? So, well, you know what? Here's my contact info. So any label that's in my contact info, so contact info, and any label that's in there. So if I have labels that are in there, well, you know what? I want their minimum width. So if you notice the for headers for my labels, and again, I would have to organize this a little bit. But if you notice, my text line is right, but all labels are minimum width of 6. And I think that's not enough room. I'd have to make the width something like 8 or 10, right? So let's make it 8 for now and see how that looks. And again, I may want to reorganize some of this stuff. So I'm going to say width of 8 ems, right? Let's take a look at that. I didn't do anything, right? So I mean, I'm guessing it's inside my label here. Let's take a look. Did I do that right? Did I save it? I did. Width of 8. Okay, let's make it a width of 10. Let's see if that worked out. Because you know what? If it's not working one time, right, that's a problem. Yeah, see, it doesn't work. Oh, I know why. And I know why because of this. This is the maximum width here is a problem, right? The maximum width of my form is like 25 or something like that, right? But you know what? I don't have to accept that anymore because my main form, if you will, right, which is, just going to go up to that piece that I did. Here's main form. Well, main form is also, I mean, I kind of put a border and everything else around that, right? But if you look at my form button, my form group, this is my inputs and everything else in here, and my labels. I also have all forms. All forms are 26 ems, right? So they'll never get bigger than 26 ems, right? So, I mean, again, I've said I can say min width of 26 ems, and it would change my other forms up. So I gotta be careful there. But I want to say all forms that are inside my my contact info. So I say, so before I do my label, I'm going to go like this. I'm going to go contact info. Maybe I spelled it wrong too. I did. Contact info. I didn't mean that. I meant contact info. Contact info. That's probably what messed me up. Contact info, and I'll say all forms that are inside my for contact forms. Basically, that's what they are. Well, you know what? I want the width instead of being 26. I want to make them like 36. I want to give them a little bit more space. So let's try that, and that should have a dramatic effect of what this looks like right now. Right, so a little bit more customer name facing. Everything looks nicer. Okay, that's cool. My message box definitely has to go wider too, right? Because I want my message box to kind of go all the way this way. So I know that these things are about 10 or 12 ems, so I should probably make it the same width. Let's try that out. And also the same styling for this. So Let's go back in here, and I'm going to go back up here to where I have my form styling. And if you notice, my inputs are 6Ms, and that's cool, right? For my form buttons, I've already done that. That's definitely one thing I want to put in there. It's definitely a form element or form group, but that's definitely one I want to copy. So not just inputs, but I want the exact same styling for text areas. So I'm just going to go input, comma, text area. There we are. So both of those now are going to get that same styling. I don't want to change that, right? So let's, see what that looks like. Okay, pushes that down a little bit more. Same size, right? And if you notice, this is good, right? Because it gives me kind of the same size. But look at the text in there is a little bit smaller. How come? How come? Same size here, enter email. But in here, the text area is small. Why? And because those are text input specific, right? If I go, text area, this is my minimum width. My font size is 1.2M and 1.3M for this. But then when I go to input type is equal to radio, I get a different thing. My form group changes colors, changes things as well. But I don't have enough spacing, right, for my colors in my groups. Let's take a look here. So refresh this for a second. So this is, I still look like this is a lot smaller than that, right? Take a look. Well, this is why I got to be careful with what I say in my index.html. So if I go back to index.html or contact.html, if you notice, I've also specified a number of columns and rows, right? Which is maybe not something I want. So let's take away columns for a second to show you what I'm talking about here. That's a real issue when it comes to how big my form expands to. It'll reduce my form size to fit that column width, right? So refresh. Okay, so now again, if you notice, there's a minimum, kind of a maximum size it's going to be, right, for my message. And the reason for this, again, if I go back to main CSS, is my label is one size, and my input minimum width is 6Ms, right? So there's stuff to fill it up, but I don't have any min width for my message, so I can certainly put it in here. I can say, well, all my messages are text areas, just text areas alone, right? So if it's a text area by itself, well, you know what? I want my min width not to be 6, but I want it to be 8M, right? Let's try and see if I can just target that alone. Let's see if that does it. And refresh. Hey, how come it's not working? It's a text area, right? How come it's not targeting that little control there? Any ideas? Well, text area is funky. So I kind of like using them, and I kind of don't like using them. Because see how I can expand this thing? Look, take a look. I can expand this thing as big as I want, right? It's actually one of the things that allows you to do it. Look at. So let's take a look at, and I like doing this a lot. I like looking the specification for this stuff. So columns is the visible width of the text area, visible width in columns, right? So if I look at columns, and if you notice, it says 50 here, right? That's going to be a much bigger width than 5, right? And this is an average character width. The default is 20 if I don't put anything in there. So I don't want 20. I want like 30, right? Okay, so let's go back there and change that. So go back here and change this from, in my contact.html, I want to change my text area here, right? Here's my text area, right? So my columns, right, is equal to like 30, right? Let's see how that works. Okay.
Good day.
Good day to you. And let's see if that makes any difference there. Well, though that went way off, way bigger than normal, right? That's like a lot bigger than it was before. So let's say 30. How about 25? Let's see if that's a difference, right? See what the difference is here, right? So 25. And let's refresh that one. So see if that one is a little better. So that looks a little nicer. Still not happy with my text inside my columns, right? And again, I'd have to go in there, but we've run out of time. I want to kind of stop it there. But the idea is that, again, with text area, that's one of the things that we want to try and kind of deal with from a form perspective. We kind of cover text area. We didn't cover the select element, and I'll probably cover that a little bit next time. right? As we finish off forms for this week, and I'll also cover web fonts, like I said, for next day. Okay, but I want to get through most of these elements here. A lot of them we've already covered. Like for example, the submit button we've covered, the reset button we've covered. There's a bunch of these things we've already covered in here, and the idea of a hidden field, but I want to cover the rest. And that's it for me.